Ever wished you could just kind of soak up languages like a sponge? Just wake up and boom, you're fluent in French, Spanish, maybe even Klingon for fun.
Haha, Klingon, that's great.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive on hyperpolyglots. These are people who can speak 6 or more languages fluently.
It really is mind-blowing how they do it, and we're talking way beyond the basics,
Oh, absolutely.
diving deep into grammar, accents, even the little cultural things most people miss.
Right, like they've got these multiple worlds unlocked in their heads.
Exact.
So 6 languages is just the baseline,
Hmm.
right? Some hyperpolyglots speak like 11, 20, even over 50 in some cases.
It's wild, isn't it?
Like having this massive library of cultures and ideas just like accessible.
And it's not just word for word either. Scientists test this stuff seriously. Real-time translation, deep conversations about tough topics.
Oh, wow. So like proving they can really use these languages.
Yeah, imagine switching between, say, philosophy in German, then politics in Japanese on the fly.
Whoa, that's next level.
It is. Makes you think about those stories like Cardinal Mezzofanti supposedly spoke 70 languages.
It's almost like a myth, right? 70. Were these people born different or?
The age-old question. Well, we've got modern hyperpolyglots too, like Alexander Orgales, over 50 languages. Or Ioannis Ikonomou, 32 and counting.
It makes you wonder what's going on in their brains. Like physically, is there a difference?
Get this, MRI studies actually show they do have more gray matter, especially in the language areas of the brain.
Okay, so more gray matter, but what's that mean in real terms?
Imagine a city, right? But instead of normal roads, it's all super efficient expressways.
So information's zipping around faster.
Exactly. Processing is faster, they make connections between languages, spot patterns we miss. It's almost like they're seeing the code of language itself.
Whoa, so it's like they're literally wired for this, like a supercomputer up there.
Yeah, think multi-core processor versus a single one. They're juggling languages, translating on the fly, cross-referencing effortlessly.
Not just memorizing vocab lists. Then it's constant analysis, comparison.
Right, and here's another crazy thing. Hyperpolyglots are amazing at sound discrimination. Like tiny differences in pitch, tone, accent.
So they're not just understanding, they're hearing the music of the language.
And even crazier, their brains adapt these new sounds, creating categories for them, adjusting accents fast. It's like their motor control for speech gets supercharged.
That's wild. So if their brains can change this much, what does that mean for the rest of us?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's like we're all carrying around this potential, maybe more than we realize.
Precisely, and that's what makes these hyperpolyglots so fascinating to study. They're like living examples of what the human brain can achieve.
So stay with us, folks, because we're just getting started on this deep dive into the world of hyperpolyglots. Up next, we're going to unlock some of the secrets behind their rapid language acquisition. And you might even pick up a few tips to boost your own language learning journey.
It's going to be fascinating. I can't wait to share what we've learned.
So before the break, we were talking about immersion simulation. I admit, I'm intrigued. Like, how do you actually do that if you can't just jet off to, say, Italy?
It's like, imagine you want to learn Italian, right? But Rome's not in budget. Immersion simulation is about bringing that Italian experience to you, turning your living room into like a mini language lab.
So, minus the gelato stands, I'm building my own little piazza.
Well, gelato breaks are always a good idea. But seriously, think about how we experience language naturally.
Okay, yeah.
You could switch your phone settings to Italian, your computer too. Start following Italian accounts online, music, podcasts, anything that gets you hearing the language.
I get it. You're kind of tricking your brain into thinking it's in Italy, soaking it all up.
Right. Instead of textbook vocab, you're picking up the flow of conversation, the idioms, slang, stuff that makes it real.
And probably all those cultural nuances too, right? Like humor, social cues.
Absolutely. It's not just the words, it's how they're used, the context, the unspoken stuff. Immersion simulation helps with all that.
Okay, I'm sold on the idea. But knowing me, I'd get lazy, just passively listen. How do you make sure you're actually using the language?
That's where active engagement comes in. You got to be a participant, not just an observer. Don't just listen to that podcast, repeat phrases, try the pronunciation.
Oh, so like even have conversations with myself in Italian.
Exactly. You're on stage now, not in the audience. Even if it feels awkward, every mistake is your brain making connections.
That's a good way to think about it. Takes the pressure off being perfect.
And speaking of mistakes, hyperpolyglots are big on focusing on root words and grammar structures.
Ah, so it's like understanding the blueprints before building the house.
Exactly. You get the foundation, then the details are easier. Like many languages have shared roots, so if you learn one,
It's like you've got this key to unlock others.
it becomes a mental map, making those connections faster.
So it's all connected then. The immersion gives you input, active use makes you practice, and roots give you the framework.
It's multi-pronged, for sure. And the cool thing is, there's no one right way. It's about finding what clicks for you, experimenting.
And maybe, just maybe, unlocking a bit of that hyperpolyglot potential we've been talking about.
Now that's a thought, isn't it? Think about all the hyperpolyglots we've learned about. What really gets to you about them? What makes them so fascinating?
For me, it's the passion. It's not casual. They're diving in, the cultures, the challenge.
Yeah, it's infectious, their enthusiasm reminds you that language learning isn't a chore, it's an adventure, expanding your world.
And they don't pretend it's easy. They hit those walls, get frustrated, but they keep going.
They see those struggles as part of it. A good lesson for anything, really, not just languages.
Totally. It's that growth mindset,
Mm.
embracing the mess of learning.
That's a great way to put it, and I think that's a key takeaway from studying hyperpolyglots.
It's inspiring, for sure, this whole deep dive has been. But we're not done yet. Up next, we're getting even more personal. We'll explore the motivations of hyperpolyglots, the unique challenges they face, and how they manage to keep all those languages straight in their heads.
It's going to be a fascinating conversation. You won't want to miss it.
All right, so we've talked brains, strategies, but what about the people behind these hyperpolyglot feats? Like, what makes them tick?
It's easy to get caught up in the, how many languages, the mental gymnastics, but they are just people, right? With their own reasons for doing this.
Yeah, it's good to remember that. So what kind of things motivate them to even start down this path?
A lot of it's curiosity about other cultures, connecting with people from different places. Language becomes this bridge.
Like each new language is a new world opening up.
Exactly. And for some, it's straight up love of language itself, the sound, the rhythm, the poetry of it.
Oh, I get that. When I started learning Spanish, there's something about how it flows.
And for some, it's more practical. Travel, career stuff, or even just like a personal challenge.
So lots of reasons, just like there's lots of languages.
Right. And we got to be real, they face challenges too. Motivation dips, grammar struggles. It can feel overwhelming.
That's actually kind of comforting to hear. Makes it feel more attainable.
Exactly. But the key is they don't quit. They've got ways of coping, pushing through, keeping it all straight in their heads.
Okay, so spill the beans. How do they manage all those languages?
Routines are huge. Setting time for studying, reading, podcasts, speaking practice, like building a habit.
Makes sense. Consistency is key for anything.
And they're smart about it. They'll focus on a couple languages at once, rotate through them, keep things fresh.
Like a mental workout, different muscle groups each day.
Uh-huh, I like that. And they're always trying new resources, apps, courses, tutors, whatever works for them.
So it's about being flexible, finding your own style.
And they use the languages. Travel, cultural events, online communities, they make it part of their life.
So it's not all flashcards and textbooks, it's living the language.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing is they never stop learning. Always curious, always seeking new challenges.
That lifelong learner thing, that's inspiring no matter what you're into.
It really is. And that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating, right?
It is. Hyperpolyglots show us the power of language, but also just the power of learning itself.
And anyone can tap into that, even if you don't aim for hyperpolyglot status.
Right. Every word learned, every conversation, it all adds up.
So go explore those languages, connect with cultures, see what you discover.
I love that. Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of hyperpolyglots. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep those language adventures going.